This is the start of Seth Speaks, the nature of personal reality. Chapter 4, your imagination and your beliefs, and a few words about the origin of your beliefs. Let us begin. In physical life, your conscious mind is largely dependent upon the workings of your physical brain. You have a conscious mind whether you are in flesh or out of it. But when you are physically oriented, then it is connected to your physical brain. The brain, to some extent, keeps the mind to a three-dimensional focus. It orients you towards the environment in which you must operate. And it is because of the mind's allegiance with the temporal brain that you perceive, for example, time as a series of moments. The brain channels the information that the mind receives to your physical structure so that your experience is physically sifted and automatically translated into terms that the organism can understand. Because of this, physically speaking and in life as you think of it, the mind is to a large extent dependent upon the brain's growth and activity. There is some information necessary to physical survival that must be taught and handed down from parent to child. There are basic assumptions of general nature with which you are born, but because the specific conditions of your environment are so various, these must be implemented. So, it is necessary that the child accept beliefs from its parents. These will enforce the family group when the child most needs protection. This acquiescence to belief, then, is important in the early stages as infant develops into child. This sharing of mutual ideas not only protects the new offspring from dangers obvious to the parents, it also serves as a framework within which the child can grow. This provides leeway until the conscious mind is able to reason for itself and provide its own value judgments. Later, I will discuss the greater aspects of the origin of ideas, but for now, we will simply speak in terms of this life, the one you know. The beliefs you receive, therefore, are your parents' conceptions of the nature of reality. They are given to you through example, verbal communication, and constant telepathic reinforcement. You receive ideas about the world in general and your relationship to it. And from your parents, you are also given concepts of what you are. You pick up their ideas of your own reality. Underneath all this, you carry indelibly within you your own knowledge of identity, meaning, and purpose. But in the early stages of development, great care is taken to see that you relate in physical terms. These are directional beliefs that you receive from your parents, orienting you in ways that they feel are safe. Cushioned with these beliefs, the child can be safe and satisfy its own curiosity, develop its abilities, and throw its full energy in clearly stated areas of activity. So, it is quite necessary that an acquiesce to belief does exist, particularly in early life. There is no reason, though, for an individual to be bound by childhood beliefs or experience. The nature of some such beliefs is that while seemingly obvious ones are recognized as harmful or foolish, others connected to them may not be so easily understood. For example, it may seem silly to you that you ever believed in, say, original sin. It may not be so obvious that many of your present actions are caused by a belief in guilt. We will have much to say about the ways in which your beliefs can be connected simply because you are not used to examining them. You may say, I am overweight because I feel guilty about something in my past. You may then try to discover what the charged event was. But in such a case, your trouble is a belief in guilt itself. You do not have to carry such a belief. I am well aware that strong elements of your civilization are built upon ideas of guilt and punishment. Many of you are afraid that without a feeling of guilt, there will be no inner discipline, and the world would run wild. It is running quite wild now, not despite your ideas of guilt and punishment, but largely because of them. But we will have more to say about that later in the book. The early ideas given to you by your parents then structure your learning experiences themselves. They set the safe boundaries within which you can operate in early years. Quite without your conscious knowing, because your mind, connected with its brain, is not that developed, your imagination is set along certain roads. Largely, but not completely. Your imagination follows your beliefs, as do your emotions. To some extent, there are certain general patterns. A child will cry when it's hurt. It will stop when the hurt stops, and the emotion behind the cry will automatically change into another. But if the child discovers that a prolonged cry after the event gets extra attention and consideration, then it will begin to extend the emotion. From the earliest stages, the child automatically compares its interpretation of reality with its parents. Since the parents are bigger and stronger and fulfill many of its needs, it will attempt to bring its experience into line with their expectations and beliefs. While it is generally quite natural for the child to cry or feel badly when hurt, this inclination can be carried through belief to such an extent that prolonged feelings of desolation are adopted as definite behavior patterns. Behind this would be the belief that any hurt was inherently a disaster. Such a belief could originate from an over-anxious mother, for instance. If such a mother's imagination followed her belief, as of course it would, then she would immediately perceive a great potential danger to her child in the smallest threat. Both through the mother's actions and telepathy, the child would receive such a message and react according to those understood beliefs. Many such beliefs lie quiet within the conscious mind. The grown adult, not used to examining his or her own beliefs, however, may be quite unaware of harboring such an idea. The idea itself is not buried or unconscious. It is simply unexamined. So, one of the most hampering beliefs of all, as earlier mentioned, is the ideas that clues to current behavior are buried and usually inaccessible. This belief itself closes you to the contents of your own conscious mind and prevents you from looking there for the answers that are available. Hey everyone, this is Tony Victory of Wolf Uncaged. Before we begin this passage, I figured it would be nice to begin by including the notes from Robert Butts preceding the actual passage. Hopefully this will give more context to what they mean by the pendulum in this passage, and also it might be quite interesting to know what was going on during the inner dictation. So without further ado, this is Robert Butts speaking. Jane said that she had really been out during her trance and that now she felt almost drunk with exhilaration. The Times noted as she delivered the material showed that she'd marched along at a good pace. On the one hand, she continued, looking a little bleary. I could go way under and deliver the book until morning, or I could just go to bed and conk right out. She was quite curious about the reasons behind these feelings. I now described an effect that had started to bother me after the session had begun. It's a good little example of the way beliefs can work. No sooner had Seth come through than I became aware of an unaccustomed tightness in my writing hand, a tension that interfered with the automatic formation of the letters and words. I kept the notes going by making an extra effort, but I found it quite distracting to keep thinking about the mechanics of writing while trying to concentrate upon what Seth was saying. The difficulty persisted through the delivery and into break. I told Jane I'd thought of using the pendulum after the session to get at the cause of the hand phenomenon, since I didn't want to interrupt book dictation by asking Seth about it. Briefly, for those who have asked me, the pendulum is a very old method. I use it with excellent results to obtain the ideomotor subconscious responses about knowledge that lies just outside my usual consciousness. I hold a small, heavy object suspended by a thread so that it is free to move. By mentally asking questions, I obtain yes or no answers according to whether the pendulum swings back and forth or from side to side. As we talked about our individual hang-ups, Jane said that we had a choice. We could get material on them or continue with the book work. Both channels were available from Seth complete. Although we wanted dictation to continue, we were also interested in learning more about our own personal questions. Feeling somewhat guilty, we opted for the latter course. But as the material unfolded, we were glad we'd done so. So this was written during Jane's break. Jane's break has now ended. It is 10:20 p.m. And now we resume with the conversation between Robert Butts and Seth. Let's begin. Now, this is your information. First of all, it is within your conscious mind. The pendulum would be a method of allowing you to view conscious material that is not structured to recognize beliefs. I want you to understand that, for the reader does not have the benefit of my talking to him personally in this way. The belief is conscious. You are well aware of it, but you are not aware of those that cling to it. The belief is that you do not communicate well with your mother. Robert Butts replied, Seth was quite correct. Talk about seeing the proverbial light. Suddenly I saw the belief had been right there all the time. Remember that Jane and I had spent the weekend visiting my mother and brother, etc. Seth continues, hinged to this is the belief that this felt lack of communication is wrong, and that for anything wrong, you should be punished. In taking dictation for this book, you were helping us communicate with many people, while at the same time, you feel you cannot communicate with your own parent. These beliefs working together then bring about a strain in the hand that does the writing. Quite simply, you want to express through the sessions these ideas in which you so believe, and yet you feel or believe yourself guilty for doing so when you cannot describe the same ideas to your own parent. The conflicting beliefs then cause difficulty in the method. The hand's motion is not as automatically smooth as it should be. You also believe that you communicate through writing far better than you do verbally. To Rupert, you often write notes, saying things easily and beautifully that you find difficult verbally because of your belief. Robert Butts replies, yes. So this evening, you feel guilty in reaching others through transcribing the notes when you believe that you could not reach your mother vocally. So the method becomes involved with your beliefs. I'm giving this to you to show how your beliefs work. Robert Butts replies, I need the help too. Seth continues, You also believe, if you wish, you can underline every believe when I'm talking to you, that your main method of communication is painting. And here you are taking those as a form of dissemination instead. This would not be involved particularly were not for the fact of two subsidiary concurrent beliefs that conflict having to do with the weekend. One, that you should be in Rochester, as you were, dealing vocally with your mother. And two, that you should have been here, reading out to the world at large through your painting. Instead, on your return, you were communicating to the world through your notes. A choice you made consciously, but without being aware of the other contents of your conscious mind and the conflicting beliefs. Do you follow me? Robert Butts replies, yes. These mentioned beliefs are obvious enough when I tell you of them, but their opposing natures gave confusing data to the body consciousness. Right and do not right. The idea of punishment, the belief in it, also enters in. You do what you decided to do anyway. Have the session. But by punishing yourself with your own personal interpretation, your mother's condition, you believe, involves a lack of communication. Your brother told you about her occasionally faltering speech. Now your quite conscious interpretation of an apt kind of self-punishment was a lack of hand motion. I'm trying to put this simply so you can follow the connections. Because you believe your method of expression is primarily through your hand in painting, and you believe your mother to be vocal, you tampered with your hand's motion, not, for example, your speech. Can you follow that consciously? Robert Butts replies, yes, and it was very well put, I thought, as I wrote. Now, at various times, you made those conscious choices. They escaped your notice, but they existed as conscious points of awareness and choice. Now, do you have any questions? Robert Butts replies, no, I just like time to think about all of this. Rupert has recently been in the process of recognizing some beliefs that he wants to get rid of. He has been loosening them so that they rattle around within his consciousness. He is becoming aware of them. They are not as invisible as they were. He is facing many of them for the first time. You should both become equally aware and consciously, alertly aware of the beneficial ideas and their importance in your lives. And this will be a portion of the book for others also. Tonight, Rupert was exhausted. In one way, from comparing your joint beliefs with those of your brother's family, of checking his own body beliefs. Jane touched her knee with theirs and seeing where his were detrimental, but also from contrasting his personal psychic and creative ability with theirs, and that exhilarated him. The result was that he felt both exhausted and exhilarated. I saw to it that he became aware that I was working on our book this morning. Ideas about it came into his consciousness. In the past, he did not believe that such bleed-throughs should occur, and so in his experience, they did not usually emerge. They were there, but his belief prevented his recognition of them. I will, from time to time, give subsidiary material for Rupert and also for you, implementing a chapter in a book for your personal use. It is vital that you realize you are working with beliefs in your mind, that the real work is done there, in the mind, and not look for immediate physical results. They will follow as surely and certainly as the bad results followed. And this must be a belief that the good results will come. But the real work is done in the mind. If you do the work, then you can rest assured of the results. But you must not check constantly for them. Do you see the difference? Robert Butts replies, yes. Seth says, do you have any questions? Robert replied, I think it's excellent material. Your beliefs always change to some extent. As an adult, you perform many activities that you believed that you could not as a child, for instance. You may, at the age of 3, believed it was dangerous to cross the street. By 30, hopefully, you have dismissed such a belief, though it fit very well and was necessary to you in your childhood. If your mother reinforced this belief telepathically and verbally through dire pictures of the potential danger involved in street crossing, however, then you would also carry within you that emotional fear and perhaps entertain imaginative considerations of possible accident. Your emotions and your imagination both follow your belief. When the belief vanishes, then the same emotional context is no longer entertained, and your imagination turns in other directions. Beliefs automatically mobilize your emotional and imaginative powers. Few beliefs are intellectual alone. When you are examining the contents of your conscious mind, you must learn or recognize the emotional and imaginative connotations that are connected with a given idea. There are various ways of altering the belief by substituting its opposite. One particular method is three-pronged. You generate the emotion opposite the one that arises from the belief you want to change, and you turn your imagination in the opposite direction from the one dictated by the belief. At the same time, you consciously assure yourself that the unsatisfactory belief is an idea about reality and not an aspect of reality itself. You realize that ideas are not stationary. Emotions and imagination move them in one direction or the other, reinforce them or negate them. Quite deliberately, you use your conscious mind playfully, creating a game as children do in which, for a time, you completely ignore what seems to be in physical terms and pretend that what you really want is real. If you are poor, you purposely pretend that you have all you need financially. Imagine how you will spend your money. If you are ill, imagine playfully that you are cured. See yourself doing what you would do if you cannot communicate with others. Imagine yourself doing so easily. If you feel your days dark and pointless, then imagine them filled and joyful. Now, this may sound impractical, yet in your daily life, you use your imagination and your emotions often at the service of far less worthy beliefs. And the results are quite clear. And let me add, unfortunately, practical. As it took a while for the unsatisfactory beliefs to become materialized, so it may be a time before you see physical results. But the new ideas will take growth and change your experience, certainly as the old ones did. The process of imagining will also bring you face to face with other subsidiary ideas that may momentarily bring you up short. You may see where you held two quite conflicting ideas simultaneously and with equal vigor. In such a case, you stalemated yourself. You may believe that you have a right to health, and yet with equal intensity believe that the human condition is by nature tainted. So, you will try to be healthy and not healthy at the same time, or successful and not successful, according to your individual system of beliefs. For later in the book, you will see how beliefs will generally fall into a system of related ideas. This is the end of the evening. Robert Butts replies, "Very good, Seth." Seth replies, "I'm glad you approve." Robert Butts says, "Good night. I bid you a fine evening and a hearty introduction to good beliefs." Seth replies, "Thank you." The session ends at 11:33 p.m. Your beliefs generate emotion. It is somewhat fashionable to place feelings above conscious thoughts. The idea being that emotions are more basic and natural than conscious reasoning is. The two actually go together, but your conscious thinking largely determines your emotions, and not the other way around. Your beliefs generate the appropriate emotion that is implied. A long period of inner depression does not just come upon you. Your emotions do not betray you. Instead, over a period of time, you have been consciously entertaining negative beliefs that then generated the strong feelings of despondency. If emotion could be trusted over conscious reasoning, then there would be little point in aware thought at all. You would not need it. You are not at the mercy of your emotions either, for they are meant to follow the flow of your reasoning. Your mind is meant to perceive the physical environment clearly, and its judgment about the environment then activate the body's mechanism to bring about proper response. If your beliefs about existence are fearful, then the emotional reactions will be those leading to stress. Your own value judgments need examination in such a case. Your imagination, of course, fires your emotions, and it also follows our beliefs faithfully. As you think, so you feel, and not the other way around. Later we will have some comments regarding hypnotism. Here, let me mention that in those terms, you hypnotize yourself constantly with your own conscious thoughts and suggestions. The term hypnosis merely applies to a quite normal state in which you concentrate your attention, narrowing your focus to a particular area of thought or belief. You concentrate with great vigor upon one idea, usually to the exclusion of others. It is a quite conscious performance. As such, it also portrays the importance of belief. For using hypnosis, you force feed a belief to yourself, or one given to you by another, a hypnotist. But you concentrate all of your attention upon the idea presented. Here, as in normal life, your emotions and actions follow your beliefs. If you believe you are sick, then for all intents and purposes, you are sick. If you believe that you are healthy, then you are healthy. There is much written about the nature of healing, and there will be material in this book dealing with it, but there is also healing in reverse, in which case an individual loses a belief in his or her health and accepts instead the idea of personal illness. Here, the belief itself will generate the negative emotions that will indeed bring about a physical or emotional illness. The imagination will follow, painting a dire mental picture of a particular condition. Before long, physical data bears out the negative belief. Negative in that it is far less desirable than a concept of health. I mention this here simply because in the overall development of an individual, an illness may also be used as a method to achieve another constructive end. In such a case, belief would also be involved. Such a person would have to believe that an unhealthy condition was the best way to serve another purpose. Other means would seem close to him because of various personal beliefs that would form a vacuum in his experience. That is, he would see no other way, perhaps, to achieve the same end. This will be discussed much more thoroughly later in the book. One belief, of course, can be dependent upon many others, each generating its own emotion and imaginative reality. The belief in illness itself depends upon a belief in human unworthiness, guilt, and imperfection, for example. The mind does not hold just active beliefs. It contains many others in a passive state. These lie latent, ready to be focused upon and used. Any of them can be brought to the fore when a conscious thought acts as a stimulus. If you are focusing upon ideas of poverty, illness, or lack, for example, your conscious mind also holds latently concepts of health, vigor, and abundance. If you divert your thoughts from the negative ideas to the positive ones, then your concentration will begin to alter the balance. The vast reservoir of energy and potential within you is called into action under the leadership of your conscious mind. Because you are reasoning as creatures, because you have available such varieties of experience, the human species develop reasoning abilities that are meant to evolve and grow as they are used. Your consciousness expands as you use it. You become more conscious as you exercise these faculties. A flower cannot write a poem about itself. You can, and in doing so, your own consciousness turns around about itself. It literally becomes more than it was. Existing in such diversified, rich environment possibilities, the human psyche needed and developed a conscious mind that could make fairly concise and accurate minute-by-minute judgments and evaluations. As the conscious mind grew, now, so did the range of imagination. The conscious mind is a vehicle for imagination in many ways. The greater its knowledge, the further the reach of imagination. In return, imagination enriches conscious reasoning and emotional experience. You have not learned to use your consciousness properly or fully, so that it seems that imagination, emotions, and reasoning are separate faculties or sometimes set against each other. The mature conscious mind, once more, accepts data from the exterior world and from the interior one. It is only when you believe that consciousness must be attuned only to exterior conditions that you force it to cut itself off from inner knowledge, intuitional voices, and the depths from which it springs. It's 10:48 p.m. These are the notes of Robert Butts. This is Seth Speaks, Chapter 4, The Nature of Personal Reality, Part 8. Let's begin. Jane had spoken for Seth at a deliberate pace throughout the delivers in a rather dry voice. Her trance had been good. This proved to be the end of the bookwork for the evening. Seth came through with 5 additional pages of material for Jane and me, however, and the session ended at 11:45 p.m. This is session 621 on October 16th, 1972. It's 9:40 p.m. on a Monday. Seth spoke through Jane 5 times last week. On Monday and Wednesday evenings, he furnished material on this book, plus some personal material for us, discoursed at length Tuesday night in ESP class, spoke briefly Friday afternoon to a visiting editor from Time magazine, subject Freudian psychology, and on Saturday evening talked informally to a group of our friends about daily life in Italy during the time he had been a minor pope in the 4th century AD. Reincarnation-wise, Seth had first mentioned his papal experience in an ESP class in May 1971. See Chapter 22 of Seth Speaks. I made just a few notes on the Saturday night material after our guest left. We've been discussing current population problems when Seth came through to tell us that in the 4th century, infanticide, at least to his knowledge, had been quite common. Before a child was baptized, it was considered to be the property of its parents, who could do with it as they wished with no stigma attached. Surplus children, who would have been an impossible burden upon the economy of the times, its housing, food supply, etc., were simply killed before baptism. Once the child was baptized, however, it became a sacred being possessing a soul and the right to life. Seth added that our records of those early centuries are confused as far as the church, baptism, and children are concerned. There was quite a bit more to the session, but I didn't think my memory of it was clear enough for accurate notes. Now we begin the session. Good evening again. Good evening, Seth. I am not minimizing the importance of the inner self. All of its infinite resources are placed at the disposal of your conscious mind, however, and for your conscious purposes. There has been, on the one hand, a too great reliance upon the conscious mind, while its characteristics and mechanisms were misunderstood. So that proponents of the conscious reasoning mind above all theories advocate the use of intellect and reasoning powers while not recognizing their source in the inner self. The conscious mind was therefore expected to perform alone, so to speak, ignoring the highly intuitive inner information that is also available to it. It was not supposed to be aware of such data, yet any individual knows quite well that intuitive hunches, inspiration, precognitive information, or clairvoyant material has often risen to conscious knowledge. Usually, it is shoved away and disregarded because you have been taught that the conscious mind should not hold with such nonsense. So you have been told to trust your conscious mind, while at the same time, you were led to believe it could only be aware of stimuli that came to it from the outside physical world. On the other hand, there are those who stress the great value of the inner self, the emotional being, at the expense of the conscious mind. These theories hold that the intellect and usual consciousness are far inferior to the inner unconscious portions of being, and that all the answers are hidden from view. The followers of this belief consider the conscious mind in such derogatory terms that it almost seems to be a superfluous cancer that sprouted like a growth upon a man's psyche, impeding rather than aiding his progress in understanding. Both groups ignore the miraculous unity of the psyche, the fine, natural inner workings that exist between the so-called conscious mind and the so-called unconscious. The incredibly rich interaction as each gives and takes. The unconscious simply contains great portions of your own experience in which you have been taught not to believe. Again, Your conscious mind is meant to look into the exterior world and into the interior one. The conscious mind is a vehicle for the expression of the soul in corporeal terms. It is your method of assessing temporal experience according to the beliefs that it holds about the nature of reality. It automatically causes the body to react in certain ways. I cannot say this often enough. Your beliefs form your reality. Your body and its condition, your personal relationships, your environment, and en masse, your civilization and world. Your beliefs automatically attract the appropriate emotions. They reinforce themselves through imagination, and at the risk of repeating myself, because this is so important, imagination and feeling follow your beliefs. It is not the other way around. If now a brief, innocuous enough example, you meet an individual often enough and think, he gives me a pain in the neck. It is surely no coincidence that you find yourself with a painful neck in future encounters with this person. The suggestion is quite a conscious one, however empathetically given by yourself and carried out not symbolically, but most practically, most literally. In other words, the conscious mind gives its orders, and the inner self carries them out. In this existence, you are physically oriented. Surely then, the conscious, physically oriented mind is the one that is meant to make deductions about the nature of physical reality. Otherwise, you would have no free will. In Western culture, since the Industrial Revolution after about 1760, the idea grew that there was little connection between the objects in the world and the individual. Now, this is not a history book, so I will not go into the reasons behind this idea, but will merely mention that it was an overreaction, in your terms at the least, to previous religious concepts. Before that time, man did believe that he could affect matter and the environment through his thoughts. With the Industrial Revolution, however, even the elements of nature lost their living quality in man's eyes. They became objects to be categorized, named, torn apart, and examined. You do not dissect a pet cat or dog, so when man began to dissect the universe in those terms, he had already lost his sense of love for it. It became soulless for him. Only then could he examine it, you see, without qualm and without being aware of the living voice that protested. And so in his great fascination for what made things work, in his great curiosity to understand the heredity of flowers, say, he forgot what he could also learn by smelling a flower, looking at it, watching it be itself. So he examined dead nature. Often he had to kill life in order, he thought, to discover its reality. You cannot understand what makes things live when you must first rob their life. And so, when man learned to categorize, number, and dissect nature, he lost its living quality and no longer felt a part of it. To some important extent, he denied his heritage. For spirit is born into nature and the soul, and for a time, resides in flesh. Man's thoughts no longer seem to have any effect upon nature, because in his mind, he saw himself apart from it. In an ambiguous fashion, while concentrating upon nature's exterior aspects in a very conscious manner, he still ended up denying the conscious powers of his own mind. He became blind to the connection between his own thoughts and his physical environment and experience. Nature then became an adversary that he must control. Yet underneath he felt that he was at the mercy of nature, because in cutting himself off from it, he also cut himself off from using many of his own abilities. It was at this point that the nature of the conscious mind itself became so misunderstood, and those unrecognized or denied powers were assigned to the unconscious portions of the self by ensuing schools of psychology. Very natural functions of the conscious mind, therefore, were assigned to the underground and cut off from normal use. Here Seth says to Jane, "Now you may take your break." It's 10:29 p.m. Jane had been very well dissociated, with her delivery intense and often fast. She shook her head as she came out of trance. Wow, was he ever going strong? Boy, I didn't have the slightest idea of what he was going to talk about tonight. But then I saw he had one whole block of stuff to get through before he gave us any break. Robert Butt's note says, "Resume in the same active manner at 10:40 p.m. Seth says, "Now, resume dictation. Then I will have a remark to make." Robert Butts replies, "Okay." Give us a moment, because the conscious mind has been so stressed while stripped of its many characteristics. There's now an overreaction occurring in which normal consciousness is being put down. Colloquially speaking, emotion and imagination are being considered as far superior. The displaced powers of consciousness are still being assigned to the unconscious, and great efforts are being made to reach what seem to be normally inaccessible areas of awareness. To this end, drugs are utilized, cults set up, and there are methods and training manuals galore. Period. Yet, there is nothing basically inaccessible about such inner knowledge or experience. It can all be quite conscious and utilized to enrich the reality that you know. The conscious mind is not some prodigal child or poor relative of the self. It can quite freely focus into inner reality when you understand that it can. You, again, have a conscious mind. You can change the focus of your own consciousness. There have been tyrannies propagated for various reasons by the race of man upon itself. One of the greatest, however, is the idea that the conscious mind does not have any touch with the fountains of its own being, that it is divorced from nature, and that the individual is therefore at the mercy of unconscious drives over which he has no control. Man, therefore, feels himself powerless. If the purpose of civilization is to enable the individual to live in peace, joy, security, and abundance, then that idea has served him poorly. When a man or woman feels no connection between personal reality and experience and the surrounding world, then he or she loses even an animal's sense of pure competence and belonging. Your beliefs, once more, form your reality, shaping your life and all of its conditions. All of the powers of your inner self are set into activation as a result of your conscious beliefs. You have lost the sense of responsibility for your conscious thought because you have been taught that it is not what forms your life. You have been told that regardless of your beliefs, you are terrorized by unconscious conditioning. The whole following sentence to be underlined. And as long as you hold that conscious belief, you will experience it as reality. Here are Robert Butt's notes. All through these pages, Jane's delivery was most absorbed and energetic. I easily felt Seth staring at me through her wide open eyes. Seth says, some of your beliefs originated in your childhood, but you are not at their mercy unless you believe that you are. Because your imagination follows your beliefs, you can find yourself in a vicious circle in which you constantly paint pictures in your mind that reinforce negative aspects in your life. The imaginative events generate appropriate emotions which automatically bring about hormonal changes in your body, or affect your behavior with others, or cause you to interpret events always in the light of your beliefs. And so daily experience will seem to justify what you believe more and more. The only way out of it is to become aware of your beliefs, aware of your own conscious thought, and to change your beliefs so that you bring them more in line with the kind of reality you want to experience. Imagination and emotion will then automatically come into play to reinforce the new beliefs. As mentioned in the 614th session in Chapter 2, the first important step is to realize that your beliefs about reality are just that, beliefs about reality, and not necessarily attributes of reality. You must make a clear distinction between you and your beliefs. You must then realize that your beliefs are physically materialized. What you believe to be true in your experience is true. To change the physical effect, you must change the original belief, while being quite aware that for a time, physical materialization of the old beliefs may still hold. If you completely understand what I am saying, however, your new beliefs will, and quickly, begin to show themselves in your experience. But you must not be concerned for their emergence, for this brings up the fear that the new ideas will not materialize. And so hormones are the secretions formed by the ductless glands of the endocrine system, the adrenals, thyroid, pancreas, etc. These complex compounds are then carried away by body fluids to other organs or tissues where they have certain effects. Here, as always, Seth maintains that we're not at the mercy of such involuntary processes. I mentioned in the 619th session a game in which you playfully adopt an idea that you want to materialize, then imagine it happening in your mind. Know that all events are mental and psychic first, and that these will happen in physical terms. But do not keep watching yourself. Continue with the game. You are doing the same thing now, constantly and automatically, with whatever beliefs you have, and they are being constantly and automatically translated. It is the separation from self from beliefs that is so important initially. However, you're not to hammer yourself consciously. Imagination and emotion are your great allies. Your conscious direction will automatically bring them into play. You can see why it's so important that you examine all of your beliefs about yourself and the nature of your reality. And one belief, if you let it, will lead you to another. Now, much has been written saying that if imagination and willpower are in conflict, imagination will win. No, I tell you, if you examine yourself, you will find that imagination and willpower are never in conflict. Your beliefs may conflict, but your imagination will always follow your willpower and your conscious thoughts and beliefs. If this is not apparent to you, then it's because you have not yet completely examined your beliefs. Let us take a simple example. You are overweight. You have tried diets to no avail. You tell yourself that you want to lose weight. You follow what I have said so far. You change the belief. You say, because I believe I am overweight, I am. So, I will think of myself at my ideal weight. But you find you still overeat. In your mind's eye, you still see yourself as overweight. Imagine the goodies and snacks. And in your terms, give in to your imagination. And you think that willpower is useless and conscious thought powerless. But pretend that you go beyond this point. In sheer desperation, you say, all right, I will examine my beliefs further. Now, this is a hypothetical case, so you may find one of innumerable beliefs. You may, for example, find that you believe that you are not worthy and hence you should not look attractive. Or that health means physical weight and it is dangerous to be slim. Or you may find that you feel and believe that you are so vulnerable that you need the weight so people will think twice before they shove you around. In all of these cases, the ideas will be conscious. You have entertained them often, and your imagination and emotions are in league with them, and not in conflict. Robert Butts notes, as Seth, Jane looked at the clock on our bookcase. Seth says, do you want a break, or do you want to end the session? Robert Butts replies, we'll take a break. Seth says, as you will. You may be poor. Following my suggestions, you may try to alter the belief and say, my wants are taken care of and I have great abundance. Yet, you may still find yourself unable to meet your bills. Imaginatively, you may see the next bill coming, with you unable to pay it. I will have enough money, you say. This is my new belief. But nothing changes, so you think, my conscious thoughts mean nothing. Yet upon examination of your beliefs, you may find a deep conviction of your own unworthiness. You may find yourself thinking, I am no one to begin with. Or, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Or, the world is against me. Or, money is wrong. People who have it are not spiritual. You may discover again one of the numerous beliefs that all led to the fact that you do not want to have money or are afraid of it. In any case, your imagination and your beliefs go hand in hand. You may be trying to remember your dreams. Another example. You may give yourself appropriate suggestions each night only to awaken again with no memory of them. You may say, consciously, I want to remember my dreams, but my suggestions do not work. Therefore, what I want on a conscious level has little significance. Yet, if you examine your beliefs more carefully, you will find one of many possible beliefs such as, I'm afraid to remember my dreams, or my dreams are always unpleasant, or I'm afraid to know what I dream about, or I want to remember my dreams, but they may tell me more than I want to know. In this case also, your reality colors your beliefs, and your experience is a direct result of your conscious attitudes. By such attitudes as these just mentioned, you put clamps upon your inner self, purposely hamper your experience, and reinforce beliefs in the negative aspects of your being. Only by examining these ideas of your own can you learn where you stand with yourself. Now, I do not mean to stress the negative by any means, so I suggest you look at those areas of your life in which you are pleased and have done well. See how emotionally and imaginatively you personally reinforced those beliefs and brought them into physical fruition. Realize how naturally and automatically the results appeared. Catch hold of those feelings of accomplishment and understand that you can use the same methods in other areas. You also communicate your beliefs to others, of course. When visitors enter your home, they do not see it exactly as you do because they also view it through the screen of their beliefs. In your environment, however, your personal beliefs will usually predominate. People with like ideas reinforce each other's beliefs. You may meet with some misunderstanding when you suddenly decide to change your reality by changing your beliefs. According to the circumstances, you may be going in a completely different direction than the group to which you belong. The others may feel it necessary to defend ideas that all of you previously took for granted. In such cases, your beliefs merged. Each individual has his or her own ideas about reality for reasons that seem valid. Needs are met. When you abruptly change your beliefs, then in the group, you no longer have the same position. You are not playing that game any longer. In the group, you may suddenly cease to provide for the others a need that satisfied you earlier. This affects both intimate behavior and, say, social interactions. Robert Butts notes here, interestingly enough, we're already beginning to hear about such frictions developing, especially from members of ESP class as they work with the ideas in this book. Other people we see regularly have similar episodes to relate. Back to Seth. For a time then, you may experience a feeling of loss as you move from one group of beliefs to another. However, others, sharing your new beliefs, will gravitate towards you and you to them. I will say more about this later in the book, but it explains, for example, why a diet watcher suddenly determined to lose weight may meet with veiled or even open resistance from family or friends. Why the person who makes new resolutions may find himself baffled by associates' ridicule. Why the alcoholic, trying not to drink, finds others tempting him quite openly or teasing him into indulgence by hidden tactics. When someone who has been ill starts on the road to recovery through changing his beliefs, he might be quite surprised to find even his dearest allies suddenly upset, reminding him of the reality of his dire state for the same reasons. Because beliefs form reality, the structure of experience, any change in beliefs altering that structure initiates change to some extent, of course. The status quo which served a certain purpose is gone. New elements are introduced. Another creative process begins. Because your private beliefs are shared with others, because there is interaction, then any determined change of direction on your part is felt by others, and they will react in their own fashion. You are setting out to experience the most fulfilled reality that you can. To do this, you have, hopefully, begun to examine your beliefs. You may want to change others. In doing so, you begin with yourself. I told you in the 619th session to imagine a game in which you see yourself acting in line with the new desired belief. As you do so, see yourself affecting others in the new fashion. See them reacting to you in the new way. This is highly important because telepathically you are sending them interior messages. You are telling them that you are changing the conditions and the behavior of your relationship. You are broadcasting your altered position. Some will be able to understand you at that level. There may be those who need the old framework, and someone, if not you, to play the part you played before. Those people will either drop out of your experience or you must drop them from yours. Once more, if you think of your daily life as an ever-moving, three-dimensional painting with you as the artist, then you will realize that as your beliefs change, so will your experience. You must accept the idea completely, however, that your beliefs form your experience. Discard those beliefs that are not bringing you those effects you want. In the meantime, you will often be in a position of telling yourself that something is true in the face of physical data that seems completely contradictory. You may say, I live amid abundance and am free from want, while your eyes tell you that the desk is piled with bills. You must realize that you are the one that produced that physical evidence that still faces you, and you did so through your beliefs. So, as you alter the belief, the physical evidence will gradually begin to prove your new belief as faithfully as it did your old one. You must work with your own ideas. While there are general categories of beliefs and general reasons for them, you must become personally aware of your own, for no one person is completely like any other. The old beliefs serve the purpose and fulfill the need. You may have believed that, of itself, poverty was more spiritual than abundance, or that you were basically unworthy and should therefore punish yourself by being poor. According to your energy, power, and intensity, you can help change the beliefs of many people, of course. In your daily physical life, you are usually concerned with changing your beliefs about yourself and then changing the beliefs others hold about you. You will find conflicting beliefs within yourself and must become aware of these. As an example, you may believe that you want to understand the nature of your inner self, may tell yourself that you want to remember your dreams, but at the same time, still hold a belief in the basic unworthiness of the self, and be quite frightened of remembering your dreams because of what you might find there. It does no good in such a case to bemoan the situation and say, I want to understand myself, but I'm frightened I will not like what I find. You, yourself, must change your beliefs. You must stop believing that the inner self is a dungeon of unsavory repressed emotion. It does contain some repressed emotion. It also contains great intuition, knowledge, and the answers to all of your questions. Listen to your own conversation as you speak with friends and to theirs. See how you reinforce each other's beliefs. See how your imaginations often follow the same lines. All of this is quite out in the open, if you realize that it is. Almost everyone in society is acquainted with the old suggestion, every day, in every way, I am getting better and better. Now, that is an excellent suggestion given by the conscious self to other portions of your being. The results of such a suggestion would also follow your conscious beliefs, however. Earlier I used I am a dependable parent as an example of a belief. See the 618th session in Chapter 3. If to you this means that I give great attention to seeing that my children brush their teeth, eat enough, and perform properly, then you will interpret the better and better suggestion in that light. If the belief means that love for children is best expressed in those terms, if you feel there is something embarrassing about expressing affection directly, then the better and better suggestion may only reinforce that belief. You may become more efficient in that manner. This is why it is vital that you examine your beliefs for yourself and understand what they mean to you personally. If, using that example, you suddenly realize your position and begin to express your love to your children directly, you may find them quite surprised, delighted, but confused. It may take them a while to understand your reactions, but as the old reality had a cohesiveness, so will the new. You must therefore understand and examine your beliefs. Realize they form your experience and consciously change those that do not give the effects you want. In such an examination, you will be aware of many excellent beliefs that work for you. Trace through these. See how they were followed by your imagination and emotions. If possible, look in your own past for points where recognizable new ideas came to you and beneficially changed your experience. Ideas not only alter the world constantly, they make it constantly. Now, we are nearly at the end of chapter 4. I will give you both a rest and we will resume at our next session. My heartiest regards to you both. You will react, therefore, to all the information you receive according to your conscious beliefs concerning the nature of reality. The deeper portions of self do not have to take the ego's idea of time into consideration. So, these portions of self also deal with data that would ordinarily escape the ego's perception. Perhaps until a certain point of ego time was reached. The ego, which must manipulate most directly with the everyday world, takes time, clock time, quite seriously. Even the ego, however, realizes to some extent that clock time is a convention, but it does not like such conventions broken. It will often neglect any clairvoyant or precognitive material that comes into the conscious mind from the deeper portions of the self. On occasion, when the ego recognizes that such data can be highly practical, it then becomes more liberal in its recognition of it, but only when such information fits in with its concepts of what is possible and not possible. Now, the ego's concepts are your concepts. Since it is a part of you, if you dwell on ideas of danger or potential disaster, if you think of the world mainly in terms of your physical survival and consider all circumstances that may work against it, then you may find yourself subtly aware of precognitive dreams that foretell incidents of accidents, earthquakes, robberies, or murders. Your own idea of the perilous nature of existence becomes so strong that the ego allows this data to emerge, even though it is out of time, because your fearful beliefs convince it that you must be on guard. The incidents do not even have to involve you. From all the unconscious, telepathic, and clairvoyant data available, however, you will be aware of this particular grouping, and it will serve to reinforce your idea that existence is above all perilous. If this information becomes available in the dream state, you may then say, I am frightened of dreams. My bad dreams so often come true. So you try to inhibit memory of your dreams. Instead, you should examine your conscious beliefs, for they are so strong that they are causing you not only to focus upon calamity in the physical world, but to use your inner abilities to the same end. Telepathic communication is constant. This is usually at an unconscious level merely because your conscious mind is in a state of becoming. It cannot hold all the information you possess. As an example, if your conscious ideas are relatively positive, you will react to telepathically received information of a similar nature, even if you do so on an unconscious level. As I mentioned earlier, in the 616th session, you are also sending your own telepathic thoughts outward. Others will react to those according to their own ideas of reality. A family can constantly reinforce its joy, gaiety, and spontaneity by concentrating on ideas of vitality, strength, and creativity. Or it can let half of its energy slip away by reinforcing resentments, angers, and thoughts of doubt and failure. Either way, The ideas of reality are reinforced both consciously and unconsciously, not only within the family, but among all those with whom the family comes in contact. You get what you concentrate upon. There is no other main rule. It may be easy for you to see beliefs that are invisible to others in themselves. Reading this book, you may be able to point at friends or acquaintances and see clearly that their ideas are invisible beliefs, which limit their experience, and yet be blind to your own invisible beliefs, which you take so readily as truth or characteristics of reality. Your sense data, again, will most definitely reinforce your ideas. You will also react clairvoyantly and telepathically to inner information at an unconscious level that is, once more, collected under the organization of your quite conscious concepts concerning existence in general, and your own in particular. So, you are locked into physical situations that are corroborated by the great evidence of sense data. And, of course, it is convincing because it reflects so beautifully, so creatively, and so actively your own ideas and beliefs, whether they are positive or negative. In greater terms, positive and negative have little meaning, for the physical experience is meant as a learning one, but if you are unhappy, then the word negative has a meaning. I expect by now that my readers have at least begun to examine their beliefs and perhaps obtain a glimpse of some invisible ones that have been accepted before as definite aspects of reality. Now, if you are honest with your lists, you will finally come to what I call core beliefs, strong ideas about your own existence. Many other subsidiary beliefs that earlier seemed separate from each other should now appear quite clearly as being offshoots of core beliefs. They seem logical only in their relationship to a core idea. Once the core belief is understood to be a false one, the others will fall away. It is your core belief which is so strong to so focus your perception that you perceive from the physical world only those events that correlate with it. It is also the strength of the core belief that draws from the vast bank of inner knowledge only those events that seem to fit within its organization. Now, let me give you a brief example of a core belief. It's a blanket belief. Human nature is inherently evil. This is a core belief. About it will spring events that only serve to reinforce it. Experiences, both personal and global, will come into the perception of a person who holds this belief that will only serve to deepen it further. From all the available physical data of newspapers, television, letters, and private communication, he or she will concentrate only upon those issues that prove that point. Suspicion of others will grow, to say nothing about the individual's personal distrust. The belief will reach the most intimate areas of his or her life. And finally, no evidence will seem to be available to disprove it. This is a sample of an invisible core belief at its worst. A person holding it will not trust a mate, family, friends, colleagues, country, or the world in general. Another more personal core belief: my life is worthless. What I do is meaningless. Now, a person who holds such an idea will ordinarily not recognize it as an invisible belief. Instead, he or she may emotionally feel that life has no meaning, that individual action is meaningless, that death is annihilation. And connected to this will be a conglomeration of subsidiary beliefs that deeply affect the family involved and all those with whom such a person comes in contact. In writing your list of personal beliefs, therefore, leave nothing out. Examine the list as though it belonged to someone else. I did not want to imply that you make a list specifically of negative ideas, however. It is of supreme importance that you recognize the existence of joyful beliefs and take into consideration those elements of your own experience with which you've had success. I want you to capture that feeling of accomplishment and to translate it or transfer it to areas in which you have had difficulty. But you must remember that the ideas exist first and the experience physically follows. You make your own reality. I cannot say this too often. There will be periods where all of your beliefs are at even par, so to speak. The ideas may be quite limited. They may be false. They may be based upon premises that are not true. Their vitality and strength, however, will be quite real and seem to bring excellent results. Wealth is everything. Now, this idea is far from a truth. The person who accepts it completely, though, will be wealthy and in excellent health, and everything will fit in quite well with his beliefs. Yet, the idea is still a belief about reality, and so there will be invisible gulfs in his experience of which he is ignorant. On the outside, the situation will look most advantageous, and while the person seems quite content, beneath, there will be a gnawing knowledge of incompletion. On the surface, there will be balance. So, as your beliefs change, there will be alterations in your experience and behavior, and points of stress, creative stress, while you are learning. Our rich man just mentioned may suddenly realize that his belief is limiting and that he concentrated upon it exclusively so that money and health became his sole aims. The shattered belief may leave him open to illness, which would seem like a negative experience. Yet, through the illness, he may be led to areas of perception he had earlier denied, and he may be enriched in that particular manner. The shifting of belief may then open him to question his other beliefs, and he realizes that, in the area of wealth, for example, he did very well because of his beliefs. But in those others, perhaps deeper experiences opened by his illness, he learns that human experience includes dimensions of reality that had earlier been closed to him, and that these are also easily within his reach, and without the illness that originally brought them forth. A new conglomeration of beliefs might emerge. In the meantime, there was stress, but it was creative. Now, here's another example. Your conscious thoughts regulate your health. The persistent idea of illness will make you ill. While you believe that you become ill because of viruses, infections, or accidents, then you must go to doctors who operate within that system of belief. And because you believe in their cures, hopefully, you will be relieved of your difficulty. Because you do not understand that your thoughts create illness, you will continue to undergo it, however, and new symptoms will appear. You will again return to the doctor. When you are in the process of changing your beliefs, when you are beginning to realize that your thoughts and feelings cause illness, then for a while you may not know what to do. In the larger context, you realize that the doctor can at best give you temporary relief, yet you may not be completely convinced as yet of your own ability to change your thoughts. Or you may be so cowed by their effectiveness that you are frightened. So, there's a period of stress in between beliefs, so to speak, while you dispense with one set and are learning to use another. But here, you become involved with one of the most meaningful aspects of the nature of personal reality, as you test your thoughts against what seems to be. There may be a time before you learn to change your thoughts effectively, but you are engaged in a basic, meaningful endeavor. The truth is then that you form your reality directly. You react consciously and unconsciously to your beliefs. You collect from the physical universe and the interior one data that seems to correlate with your beliefs. Believe then that you are a being unlimited by nature, born into flesh to materialize as best you can the great joy and spontaneity of your nature. Core beliefs are those about which you build your life. You are consciously aware of these, though you often do not focus your attention upon them. They become invisible, therefore, unless you become aware of the contents of your conscious mind. To become acquainted with your own ideas and beliefs, you must walk among them, symbolically speaking, without blinders. You must look through the structures that you have yourself created, the organized ideas upon which you have grouped your experience. To see clearly into your own mind, you must first of all unstructure your thoughts. Follow them without judging them, without comparing them to the framework of your beliefs. Structure beliefs collect and hold your experience, packaging it, so to speak. And so when you look at a given experience that seems like another, you put it into the same structured package, often without examination. Such beliefs can hold surprises. When you lift up the cover of one, you may find that it has served to hide valuable information that did not belong there. An artificial grouping of ideas like paper flower can be collected about a standard core belief. The core belief, because of its intensity and because of your habits, will often tend to attract itself to others of a like nature. They will hang on. If you are not accustomed to examining your own mind, then you can allow separate growths of this kind to form about a belief until you cannot distinguish one from the other. This can develop to such an extent that all of your experience is seen only in relationship to this idea growth. Data that seems unrelated to this core belief is then not assimilated, but thrown into the corners of your mind unused, and you are denied the value of the information. Separate portions of your mind can contain such chambers of inactive material. This information will not be a part of the organized structure of your usual thoughts. Though the data is consciously available, you can be relatively blind to it. Usually, when you look into your conscious mind, you do so for a particular reason, to find some information. But if you have schooled yourself to believe that data is not consciously available, then it will not occur to you to find it in your conscious mind. If furthermore, your conscious data is strongly organized about a core belief, then this will automatically make you blind to experience that which is not connected to it. A core belief is invisible only when you think of it as a fact of life and not as a belief about life. Only when you identify with it so completely that you automatically focus your perceptions along that specific line. For example, here is a seemingly very innocent core belief. I am a responsible parent. Now, on the surface, there's nothing wrong with that belief. If you hold to it and do not examine it, however, you may find that the word responsible is quite loaded and collects other ideas that are equally unexamined by you. What is your idea of being responsible? According to your answer, you can discover whether the core belief works to your advantage or not. If responsible means I must be a parent 24 hours a day to the exclusion of everything else, then you may be in difficulty, for that core belief might prevent you from using other abilities that exist quite apart from your parenthood. You may begin to perceive all physical data through the eyes of that core belief alone. You will not look out upon physical reality with the wonder of a child anymore, or with the unstructured curiosity of an individual, but always through parental eyes. Thus, you will close yourself off from much physical experience. Now, telepathically, you will also attract unconscious data that fits into this rigid pattern, according to the strength and stubbornness of this idea and whether or not you are willing to deal with it. You may narrow your life still further, all information of any kind finally becoming relatively invisible to you unless it touches upon your parental reality. Now, The core belief just given is of one kind. You hold some basic assumptions that are also core beliefs. To you, they seem to be definitions. They are so a part of you that you take them for granted. Your idea of time is one. You may enjoy manipulating thoughts of time in your mind. You may find yourself thinking that time is basically different from your experience of it, but fundamentally, you believe that you exist in the hours and the years, that the weeks come at you one at a time, that you are caught up in the onrush of the seasons. Naturally, your physical experience reinforces this belief. You structure your perception, therefore, in terms of the lapses that seem to happen between events. This, in itself, forces you to concentrate your attention in one direction only, and discourages you from perceiving the events in your life in other fashions. You may occasionally employ the association of ideas, one thought leading easily to another. When you do this, you often perceive new insights. As the events fall apart from time continuity in your mind, they seem to take on fresh vitality. You have unstructured them, you see, from the usual organization. As you apprehend them through association, you come quite close to examining the contents of your mind in a free fashion. But if you drop the time concept and then view the conscious contents of your mind through other core ideas, you are still structuring. I am not saying that you should never organize those contents. I am saying that you must become aware of your own structure. Build them up or tear them down, but do not allow yourself to become blind to the furniture of your own mind. You can stub your toe easily on a misplaced idea as you can upon an old chair. It will help you, in fact, if you think of your own beliefs as furniture that can be rearranged, changed, renewed, completely disregarded, or replaced. Your ideas are yours. They should not control you. It is up to you to accept those that you choose to accept. Imagine yourself then rearranging this furniture. Images of particular pieces will come clearly to you. Ask yourself what ideas these pieces represent. See how well the tables fit together. Open up the drawers inside. There will be no mystery. You know what your own beliefs are. You will see the groupings, but it is up to you to look inside your own mind and to use these images in your own way. Throw out ideas that do not suit you. If you read this, find such an idea in yourself and say, I cannot throw this idea away, then you must realize that your inner remark in itself is a belief. You can indeed throw the idea away. The second one, as easily as the first. You are not powerless before ideas. Using this analogy, you will certainly find some furniture that you did not expect. Do not simply look in the center of your inner room of consciousness and make sure that you are on guard against the certain invisibility that was mentioned earlier in this chapter, where an idea, quite available, appears to be a part of reality instead. The structuring of beliefs is done in a highly characteristic yet individual manner, so you will find patterns that exist between various groupings, and one can lead you to another. The idea of being a responsible parent, for example, may lead quite easily to other psychic structures involving responsibility, so that is accepted on its own value. You may even think that it is wrong to view any situation except through your parental status. The belief in guilt, therefore, will be a cementing structure that would hold together other similar core beliefs and add to their strength. You must understand that these are not simply dead ideas like debris within your mind. They are psychic matter. In a sense, then, they are alive. They group themselves like cells, protecting their own validity and identity. You feed them, figuratively speaking, with like ideas. When you examine one such belief, then you obviously threaten the integrity of the structure. And so, there are ways of inserting new supports, so to speak, methods to tide you over. The whole core belief need not fall upon you as you examine its basis. Now, I will stop at that for now and take a break.